all present. You do have a quorum.
Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and stand for the invocation.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord, guide us as we deliberate tonight. May make our decisions based on good planning and fairness to all the applicants. We thank you for a great planning staff that makes our work much easier. We ask you to bless all those here and keep all safe as they travel home. Amen.
Amen.
Everyone has received a copy of the minutes of the previous meeting. Is there any additions or corrections?
Mr. Chairman, I read it and saw no reason to suggest any revisions or changes. I move we accept them as submitted.
Is there a second to that?
I second it.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. We'll now open it for citizens' comment. Anyone who wants to speak on anything that's not on the agenda is welcome to come forward, give your name and address, and you have 3 minutes. We'll open up the citizens' comment period. Close the citizens' comment period. Let's see. Do we have any requests to defer, additions, deletions, or changes to the order of the public hearings? None? Okay.
At this time, the commission would like to recognize Mr. Derek Murray for his time. So if Mr. Murray and Mr. Rockacharlie would kindly step down in front of the logo, I have a little resolution from the commission that we would like to read.
And the official photographer is?
And Ms. Hunter's going to take a photo here. Whereas Derek Murray has selflessly represented Goochland County's 3rd District in the Goochland County Planning Commission, and whereas Mr. Murray is leaving the Planning Commission after serving faithfully from May 2011 to March 2018, and whereas Mr. Murray was instrumental in the formulation and advancement of the county's 2035 Comprehensive Plan, and whereas Mr. Murray has been an outstanding steward of the county, respecting its rural nature while balancing growth and development, not only in District 3, but countywide. And whereas Mr. Murray consistently emphasized upholding the principles of the Comprehensive Plan and supporting high-quality growth and development for the county. And whereas Mr. Murray oftentimes would use a common-sense approach in his review of plans and proposed developments. And whereas the Goochland County Planning Commission will sincerely miss the dedicated service that Mr. Murray gave over the last 7 years. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Goochland County Planning Commission hereby recognizes, appreciates, and sincerely thanks Mr. Murray for his service and leadership while serving on the Goochland County Planning Commission and offers its best wishes on his future endeavors and service. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Good work.
Thank you.
We'll now open it up for our public hearing items. The first one is in District 4.
Mr. Chairman, the first is in District 4, Conditional Use Permit 2018-01. It's an application filed by William and Deborah Johnson requesting a conditional use permit for a second dwelling at 2516 Mannequin Road on tax map number 4628C. The property is zoned A2 and is 4.093 acres. The conditional use permit is required by Article 21, Section 4.1 of the Goochland Zoning Ordinance, and the comprehensive plan designates this area as rural enhancement.
Good evening. Thank you, Ms. Worley. I'm Greg Garrison, Principal Planner with Goochland County. As Ms. Worley said, this is a request to construct a second dwelling unit at 2516 Mannequin Road. The property is located in the eastern portion of the county, approximately 1,700 feet north of I-64. The 2035 Comprehensive Plan recommends rural enhancement for this area. The property is currently zoned Agriculture Limited. The site is about 40% wooded and the rest is open field. The applicant has stated the second dwelling unit would be constructed just to the south of the existing house. Once a building permit is submitted, setbacks will be reviewed at that time. The applicant has stated that the second dwelling unit is for her elderly parents. A community meeting was held on January 22nd, 2018. The 8 neighbors that attended were in support of this request. Staff has also received a letter that supports this request. Although staff has no objection to this request, the applicant should be aware that the second dwelling unit cannot be rented or subdivided in the future. Should the Planning Commission recommend approval of this application, the following conditions are recommended. Number 1, only a person or persons related to a resident of the principal dwelling shall use the detached house as a residence. The dwelling shall not be rented. There shall be a working smoke alarm and a working carbon monoxide monitor installed and maintained in both the second dwelling unit and the main house. Number 4, emergency access vehicle shall be provided for both dwellings. Number 5, the property owner shall notify the planning office in writing at the time of any transfer of ownership. And number 2, notify in writing any new owners of the conditional use permit conditions and forward a copy of that to the planning office. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson are available as well. If any questions you'd like to ask of them.
Mr. Chairman? Yeah, Greg, you mentioned the restriction on no rentals that will
Correct.
not be rented. Is that a zoning issue, or what gives rise to that restriction on not renting property?
That's just a condition that we place. It's not a zoning, right? It's a policy. Policing that would be primarily complaint driven.
So it's not a, it isn't part of the ordinance, of the zoning ordinance.
No, it's a policy decision. We put it all on the second dwelling unit.
Right.
It's so people don't circumvent the laws to, because the property is not eligible to be subdivided.
Right.
So we don't want people just building second houses
So it's
on
just,
their property.
so it's essentially an addition to the principal dwelling unit, even though it may be detached,
Right.
but it's in addition
It's
to
an
the dwelling.
accessory to the
Good.
existing property.
Thank you.
Does it have a kitchen? So it's self-contained?
Yes.
It will have a kitchen, yes.
And what happens when it's no longer needed for the intended purpose?
It'll be for family use.
Yes.
Okay.
We have overnight guests. Our main house is very small, 2 bedrooms. And we eventually, if we should need to use a wheelchair at some point after my parents are gone, we would be able to go over into it. It's gonna be ADA compliant.
Okay. Any other questions for Greg? Thank you. Would the applicant like to speak to this? Okay. I'll open it up for public comments. Anyone wishing to speak, please come and give your name and address, and you have 3 minutes. Hearing none, we close the public comment period. Members of the board, what is your pleasure?
I'll make a motion that we approve as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Is there any old business?
No old business. We do have a presentation under other business given by Ms. Marshall. She's going to review some of the proposed changes to the bylaws. I will note that they are at your desk. You have a black line copy, a clean copy, and a copy of the presentation she's going to give. You're going to have a month to go over it and think about it. Call us if you have any questions, and then we're going to be asking you to adopt it in April.
Ms. Marshall, the floor is yours.
All right. As you know, every year annually you review your bylaws and they're updated and we present proposed changes to you. These are our proposed changes this year. You'll see the majority of them, hence all of the black lining. There's a lot of moving things around, trying to make it a little more readable. I mean, obviously we can improve on this thing every year and make it better, but a lot of your changes are going to be that type of change. So, as I said, we've reorganized. You'll see some formatting changes. Section 1 is pretty much the same. Section 2 has been renamed public meetings. It was meetings before. Tried to collect all of the provisions that you previously had and group them under this section together. Previously, they were scattered a little bit. We've updated the order of the agenda to reflect your actual practice. Added a little section on the workshops. We also moved the language with regard to motions and when substitute motions, things like that. And we did add a paragraph with regard to the workshop, as I said before. We also added a section with regard to canceling meetings and clarified and added some language from the state code with regard to inclement weather and how the chairman can cancel those. Stuff similar to that. Oh, the other thing I want to highlight before I go to the other thing, you'll see the section on deferrals and withdrawals. A lot of that is just to clarify things that are already, so there's additional language there explaining things. The other thing is that we have moved the deadline. If people, when they submit their application for a rezoning, they'll submit proposed proffers, but sometimes through the course of that application, they'll want to substitute or amend the proffers that they're proposing before you. The deadline previously was 8 days before your meeting. We've moved it at the recommendation of staff is to move it to the Tuesday before. That should give staff enough time to review moderate changes. However, on occasion, sometimes there may be a substantial change that staff may request from you more time, and it's within your discretion to give it. You don't have to, but those that you'll see some language similar or hopefully that says what I just said. So that means I wrote it correctly. And actually, Section 3 is where you will find that, because I got ahead of myself. So proffer submissions, there's a whole section on that to clarify that. The public comment section addressing the commission, you'll see a lot of the things that you normally have with regard to repetition, timing. The chairman controls most of that. There's a new section with regard to written statements. As you know, sometimes citizens cannot be in attendance and would still like to give their input to you on an item that will be coming before you. So since citizens also, this is a public document, this will also hopefully provide some guidance to them as well. Sections 5 and 6, you're not going to see any major changes there, just minor formatting. And then Section 7 was formally amendment of bylaws and rules of procedure, but it had additional provisions in there that didn't really do with amending your bylaws. It also included the provision with regard to suspension, and then added the procedural issues under there as well. So those are all your procedural type provisions are together. And that is it, 7 sections. Please feel free to review the bylaws. Call me or staff, send us an email. If you have concerns, you don't care for the date change, anything along those lines, we're here to serve you. Do y'all have any questions right now?
Thank you.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other old business?
The only thing I'd like to add is the nominating committee needs to report in to me before the April meeting.
That was me.
That's, I guess we can talk about it offline with his departure. Right.
No, I mean the nominating, you are still a member until March 31st.
Okay.
So,
Behave yourself.
right.
Don't get into trouble.
So Mr. Murray can still serve on the nominating committee, and you just
Good.
touch base with
All right.
me, and then, so at least I'll know what to expect for April.
Awesome.
Okay. All right, anything from the board? Any member have any comment? All right. Board meeting adjourned.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.